We're putting Wahoo's mid-priced Kickr Core against Zwift's entry-level offering to see which is the best budget direct drive smart trainer on the market. If you're looking to get into indoor training or looking to upgrade from a wheel-on to a direct drive smart trainer, then this is the video for you. But before I get into this head-to-head, why not subscribe to our channel if you haven't already and give this video a like. Seeing as these are budget direct drive options, relatively speaking of course, let's start by talking about price. Sitting between the top of the range Kickr V6 and the entry-level Kickr Snap, the Kickr Core Smart comes in at £599 or $899. By comparison, Zwift's first foray into hardware comes in at £449 or $499 US, including a choice of cassette. So, if we were solely focusing on cost alone, then this would be a clear win for the Zwift Hub. But that wouldn't make a great video or be the best advice. After all, there is a lot more to a smart trainer than just price. Despite being at the lower end of the price spectrum, neither trainer skimps on features. The Kickr Core uses much of the same technology as its higher priced sibling, other than the size of the flywheel. The Core has a 5.4 kilo flywheel compared to the burlier 7.3 kilo one on the more expensive Kickr V6. In comparison, the Zwift Hub has a slightly lighter 4.7 kilogram flywheel, so there's around a 700 grams difference between those two. For the rider, a heavier flywheel is meant to improve ride feel, but we'll talk more about that later in the video. The Zwift Hub doesn't reinvent the flywheel when it comes to smart trainer technology, but Zwift has paid particular attention to making it easy to set up. Most smart trainers simply come with a box full of unlabeled parts, and if there is a printed manual included, it's often a little bit tricky to follow. The assembly process for most smart trainers is fairly simple. Bolt everything together, fit the correct axle adapters, add a cassette, mount your bike on it, and plug it in. As someone who has set up far more smart trainers than the average cyclist, this generally doesn't present me any issues. However, it's fair to say not everyone will have the same experience as I do. Credit therefore has to go to Zwift for the colour-coded parts, in-depth manual, how-to videos and clever cardboard axle width measuring tools. It's practically idiot-proof. When placing an order for a Zwift Hub, you'll also be given the choice of an 8, 9, 10, 11 or 12-speed Shimano HG cassette, which will then be installed on the trainer before it ships. In an era when we've seen significant price rises across the bike industry, the inclusion of a cassette, as well as a choice of options to match your bike, adds significant value to a smart trainer that's already priced far cheaper than many competitors with similar specs. The Kickr Core, on the other hand, doesn't come with a cassette, but does ship with a Shimano HG3 hub as standard and can be set up with cassettes from 8 to 12 speed. Setting up the Wahoo follows the process I mentioned earlier of bolting everything together and adding the correct axle adapters. It's not necessarily any more difficult in practice, but I do think the Zwift Hub's colour-coded instructions would make things easier if you're a little bit less experienced. Unless you have a dedicated space for your indoor training, then one thing you'll be doing regularly is setting up your smart trainer. As is common at this price point though, both trainers have fixed legs which don't fold away for storage, and neither trainer comes with a handle. Both trainers can connect via Bluetooth and ANT+, with the Bluetooth connectivity being rock solid for both. During my testing with the Zwift Hub, I did have some data dropouts when using ANT+ with an older Garmin Edge 810 bike computer, but in my experience, ANT+ is far more prone to signal interference from other local wireless devices though, so it's hard to be sure whether the blame lies with the Zwift Hub, the bike computer, or something else. Now, regardless of which was at fault, I would generally recommend using a Bluetooth connection whenever possible, as it is far more stable. Despite being intended for use specifically with Zwift, the Zwift Hub is also compatible with other smart training platforms such as Wahoo System, Rouvy or Trainer Road, and the Wahoo Kickr can also connect with all of these training platforms as well. Noise, or rather a lack of it, is also an area where both trainers really impress. Both are very quiet under normal use and neither sees a significant decibel ramp up as you increase the power or speed. In fact, most of the noise that you're likely to hear will come from your bike's drivetrain rather than the trainers themselves. When it comes to ride performance, the Zwift Hub and the Kickr Core are equally matched. The flywheel of the Kickr Core is, as mentioned earlier, slightly heavier than that of the Zwift Hub, but they both have a maximum power output of 1800 watts and they can both simulate a max gradient of 16%. Now, that won't quite cover every single road in Zwift or the most powerful cyclist out there, but will be more than adequate for the vast majority of riders. If you are lucky enough to be able to produce all of that wattage, then the wide leg stance of both trainers will provide excellent stability, both seated and out of the saddle. In general, both trainers provide a really good experience when connected to an indoor cycling app. They're quick to respond to erg mode power shifts or virtual gradient changes, the ride feel is smooth, and there's a good amount of inertia. There's really very little to separate them here. I could go in depth about how accurate the power meters in these smart trainers are, but if a data fanatic like me thinks that that would be a little dull, then I'm sure most of you will think the same. If I'm wrong though, let me know in the comments below and we'll look into delving deeper into that in future videos. I'll start with the Zwift Hub, which has a claimed accuracy to plus or minus 2.5%. Now, my initial testing found some fluctuations compared to my on-bike power meters, but after a firmware update and changing to a production unit, I found that it was tracking well in the majority of situations. The cadence accuracy is also really good at slower flywheel speeds, but they can drop off a little bit as the flywheel speeds increases. Now, I don't think this is a game-breaking issue, but I would recommend using a lower gear for erg mode workouts with specific cadence targets, because this will help improve cadence accuracy. Moving on to the Kickr Core, and Wahoo claims it's slightly more accurate at plus or minus 2%. Now, this is a little less accurate than its older sibling, the Wahoo Kickr V6 at plus or minus 1%, but it should still be plenty good enough for most people. During our testing, we found that the power output was always within a couple of percent of that produced by our Garmin Vector-free power meter pedals that our tester used. So, you've heard the pros and cons of each budget direct drive smart trainer, but which one would you choose? Let me know in the comments below. For me, I would go for the Zwift Hub. Both trainers are excellent, but the Zwift edges it just on price. As things stand, that price point, including a choice of cassette, just represents such good value. Of course, if you already have a Wahoo Kickr Core, it is still an excellent smart trainer, and I don't really think there's anything here that would tempt me to upgrade it just yet. Finally, give this video a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and if you want to see even more smart trainer reviews, then why not check out our 10-way mega test here.